Welcome to this episode of Against the Mountains of Madness. I'm your host, Jason.
And I'm John C. Wright.
And on this episode, we're going to be talking about the 15-minute Gulag. As people may be aware, our betters have had the great idea to give us a wonderful new tomorrow where everything is within easy reach. Our cities are walkable. We have 15-minute cities where people can get everything they need within 15 minutes of their home, and you don't need to drive or travel long distances to do anything anymore. This sounds like a wonderful utopia, John. What do you think?
We already did a podcast on the nature of how wonderful utopia
I did that with a straight face.
Congratulations. You're correct. The 15-minute city concept is being sold as a piece of urban planning where everyone is going to live within 15 minutes walk of all possible things they need. Bowling alleys, whorehouses, drugstores, liquor bars, other types of whorehouses, and the soccer arena, I assume. So there's going to be one soccer arena every 15 minutes walk, which is I'm not very good at math. How many square miles? How many? What's a 15-minute walk radius from a in terms of mileage? 2 miles? I just don't know. 1 mile?
I think people walk 4 to 6 kilometers an hour, so it's a mile and a bit, I'm guessing.
We don't have kilometers in America. We have miles because we're still.
You have freedom units. I know. I know. Yeah. But no, I think you're allowed to drive within 15 minutes. But a 15-minute drive is
an electric car is a 15-minute drive. You have to drive your electric go-kart 15 minutes.
That's fine. So if we assume they move about 40, I mean that's okay. You're staying within 5 to 10 kilometers of home, I think is what they have in mind.
So
everything's within 5 to 10 kilometers.
When I was young, I once read a statistic that said that during the Middle Ages, most people were born and died. That 90% of the people, maybe 95, never traveled more than 25 miles from the spot they were born. So they lived and died within a small area, one village that they never left. So our betters, the elite, now I should say our self-anointed, the self-appointed prophets, the self-anointed enlightened, the magicians, whatever you want to call them, the crackpots. The crackpots want to make a city divided into blocks with walls around every block, so that everyone within that block has to spend their time there. And they're going to monitor and meter your use of your vehicle, your electric go-kart, to make sure you don't travel too far. And if you do, then this central control will flip a switch and your car will turn off. And you'll get fined, and the money will be directly removed from your bank account immediately. Or if you vote the wrong way.
From the central bank digital currency.
The central bank digital currency will remove it
Those things are horrifying.
From the microchip that will be implanted on your hand or on your forehead, because that's all.
It's got that vibe to it, doesn't it?
Beg your pardon?
It's got that vibe to it, doesn't it?
Oh, certainly. Because here's what's funny about that. In the old days, there used to be licenses you had to get to trade in the marketplace in cities, and you had to wear it. And of course, the Jews were told to carry the scripture on their brows and on their hands. And that's why they had phylacteries to do that, because they took it literally, because it meant to be whatever their work was, whatever they did or whatever they thought was supposed to be guided by the Torah, was supposed to be guided by the Holy Scripture. So when our new enlightened, our self-appointed enlightened masters wish for us to live into the beautiful new futuristic world of Mordortopia, then in Mordortopia, we will wear on our wrist or on our hands, in our thoughts, in our deeds, in our words, everything that they want us to say and think. Now, you have to ask yourself, well, why would anyone, if people actually wanted to live in a spot where everything they needed was within a 15-minute walk or a 15-minute drive, why wouldn't they just move to a location where that is already the case? Why does this need to be imposed on anyone, anywhere? Why, if it's something that people themselves actually care about? Well, here's the answer. The self-appointed enlightened, the archons, of Mordortopia know better than us what we should do. They regard themselves as shepherds and us as sheep. They
Yeah.
regard themselves as Morlocks and us as Eloi. We're their food animals. And so we
That
can't possibly organize society for ourselves. We're not as bright as these people who got poorer grades than I did in school. So, and don't have as many degrees as I do, and haven't read as many books as I have. So, their idea is that centralized control will allow them to control everything centrally. And they don't give a flying fig about a 50 minutes walk. The excuse they're using is that it will stop energy use. And they want to stop all energy use because it will stop global warming. But if they wanted to stop
they
global
clearly
warming,
don't care about
then
that
they
though.
would. Then they no, they don't care a bit because the moment someone says, "In the name of global warming, I'd like to put up more nuclear power plants," I will treat that man as if he is sincere. If he
Yes.
doesn't say that, if he says, "I want to control all energy use because I fear global warming," and I say, "What about energy uses that do not contribute to any possible global warming?" and he says, "No, they have to go too," that man is a liar, and he's just
Of
trying to
course.
stop energy use. Now, why would anyone try to stop energy use? Well,
Freedom.
freedom. They want us not to do things. So, what's a better way of getting people not to do things? Physically prevent them from leaving their home or their neighborhood. And the way you prevent them from leaving their home or their neighborhood is you give them an energy budget, and you say you can't drive your electric cart more than 50 minutes away from your house, so we'll turn it off. You can't get on an airplane. You can get on an airplane once every 3 years if you store up all your calorie credits from the centralized bank of calorie credit system. And we're also going to fine you or reward you according to your social utility, the way they do in China.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, is more control and more perfect than anything enunciated in 1984 by George Orwell or by Brave New
Yeah.
World by Aldous Huxley. Okay, so we're actually going to enact, and they see, I believe Cambridge and Oxford are ramming this down the public's throat in the country that used to be England. Uh, uh,
Airstrip one.
yeah, the country that yeah, the airstrip one. Uh, Even now, without letting the public have a say, were they emboldened by the lockdowns for the Wuhan Red Death, which
That
turned out to
would
be completely unnecessary and had no scientific basis whatsoever?
no. They were counterproductive and killed people
Yeah.
and did enormous economic damage for.
Yep.
I think someone ran the numbers, and the lockdowns maybe saved a handful of lives. If you ignore the fact that a whole lot of people killed themselves and things like that because of them.
It's the only time in history I've heard of anyone quarantining the healthy people and not the sick.
Well, the thing with the whole 15-minute city concept, though, I mean, as advertised, it's not a completely awful idea. If you can walk everywhere, everything is nearby. I mean, I understand the appeal of this idea. You don't
Sure.
have to travel too far. Your work is nearby. It's good. It would probably tend to foster community and these sorts of things. And if they were serious about doing it and really believed in the idea, well, you could. Well, I mean, that's right. You laugh, but I mean, but
No,
you
no,
could.
I'm impressed with your ability to keep a straight face. Please continue.
But you could do something like this in the right way, which is put the infrastructure in, put the incentives in to make it so people, have what they need within 15 minutes. You could do that. You could make sure they have access to amenities. You could offer tax incentives to companies to make it easier for people to work from home and all of it. You could do that. And you could voluntarily make this a good idea. But they're not going to do that. They're going to put fences up.
Right.
Like they're just going to do it by force and say, "Suck it, plebs. This is your new life now. Enjoy your district. The Hunger Games are coming."
Right.
Um,
Because that's the
but
point. They don't care about the cities either. They don't care about global warming any more than global cooling
no, of
or
course they don't.
peak oil or anything else. They care about control, and
Of
they're using this
course,
as an excuse to gain control. Because to them, everything's they can declare an emergency, and if it's an emergency, you can force people into their homes. If it's a climate emergency, you can force everyone to live within their districts, within their 15-minute district. Now, it sounds like a fine idea, but what if your son falls in love with a lovely young lady who lives 16 minutes away? Does he
oh
just have to
hey,
walk the extra minute, or can he borrow the car? If he can borrow the car, what happens if he exceeds the electricity budget that's given to him by the central planners? Why
oh I
can't
agree.
he prioritize? I mean, when I fell in love, I gave up free rent to move to New York to be with my true love. I gave up a lot to be near her, but that was my choice. If
Yeah, of
someone had
course.
taken my house away from me, if someone had taken my apartment away from me because of my energy budget, that would have been a very different thing than me leaving that house in order to be to
Oh,
move.
and
You
that's
know,
what I'm saying. I mean, they could do this if they really believe this was a good idea. There's ways they could do it to make it attractive to people, but they're not going to
yeah,
do that. They're just going to force everybody to do it. Put electronic fences up, and
yeah,
enslave everybody.
right. Because that's the point. They're building a gulag.
Of
They're just
course,
pretending they're doing it to save Mother Nature from the wicked plague of mankind. You know, even though technically we have more uh, timber growing in America now than we did when the Red Indians were here, and our air is cleaner now than it was in the 1970s, and the famines that Paul Ehrlich predicted that would smite India in the 80s never happened.
people still take him seriously. He's
It's
never
the
been right. He's
it's
been wrong about everything, and he's never got one prediction right, and people still take him seriously. It's
in
insane. It's a cult, I guess.
it's a cult. In ancient myth, there was a woman named Cassandra who was beloved of Apollo, who granted her the gift of prophecy, but he then cursed her when she rejected
Yes,
his advances, so that no one would believe her prophecies. So when she prophesied the downfall of Troy to the Trojans, no one believed her. Well, Paul Ehrlich made a wager with the economist Julian Simon. And Julian Simon says, your model that what causes prices to go up and down is based on scarcity is false, because when prices get high, what happens is human ingenuity tries to find some way of lowering the price again by using the resources more
or,
efficiently,
or
or by
now it's
turning
more
to other
valuable.
resources.
Now it's more valuable, so we will exploit other resources, which will make it more abundant, which will drive the price down.
Right, correct. So the prices tend to go down. So the Ehrlich would not debate with the guy with any rhyme or reason. So
Of course,
finally, Julian Simon was forced to what he called the last resort of wagering. He said, "I bet you," and he bet some enormous sum of money that one
five
or the
thousand
other was going to
dollars
donate to a
is my
$5,000
understanding.
to a charity over a 10-year period, and he let Ehrlich pick 5 metals that he said, if you're right, if overpopulation is going to drain our resources, these metals will get more and more scarce, and the price will go up. Because unlike oil, there's metals are not renewable. They're not going to go up. Let me make a comment about renewable oil in a moment. Uh, so 10 years passed, every single metal
It's
dropped in
cheaper.
price. Ehrlich then said, well, that's like a man who jumps out a window who thinks everything is fine until he hits the bottom. There's going to be a sudden catastrophe when we suddenly run out of everything that no one can predict when it's going to happen. Now,
Sure,
this is from a guy who's been
convenient.
predicting that the end of the world is only 10 years away.
Oh yeah, of
He's
course.
not the only one. Greta Thunberg, who was just given a honorary degree as a doctor of theology from a university in
Yeah, I
Europe,
heard that.
had to remove one of her tweets from 5 years ago, predicting that the world would be over in 5 years. Now, to be fair, she said that we only have 5 years to make the change, otherwise mankind will be destroyed. So it's possible that she meant not that the change and the destruction would happen at the same time. Though we have 5 years to make the correction. If we fail to make the correction within 5 years, then eventually, 100 years from now, we're going to be destroyed. So it's possible that young Greta Thunberg was correct, and we're all doomed now. It's now too
Even
late to make the sudden changes that we need to save the world from. What is it we need to be saving from again? Was it
who
DDT
knows?
or
But
ozone
I
hole
mean,
or something? I
she
forget.
has
Oh, the coming ice age, the global cooling. I saw that in Time
sure
magazine.
she has to remove it because if you take her seriously, you might as well just ignore her now. You might as well eat, drink, and be
Right.
merry, for tomorrow we die.
For
We're
doomed.
doomed. It's fine. We're
Yeah,
done. Okay, that's
the
fine.
comet coming to destroy the Earth is now too close to be deflected by an atomic bomb, so we can't. There's no
So
point.
so
Yes,
we don't have to take you. We don't have to take you seriously, crazy dead-eyed golem.
but here's the problem with both Dead-Eyed Gollum and Reverse Cassandra. Oh, I should say the point of my story was, uh, uh, the Ehrlich then earned the moniker from Julian Simon as being the Reverse Cassandra. The more often his predictions are wrong, the more people,
More people
believe him.
believe him.
So it's the opposite of Cassandra, who said the truth. The more often her predictions are right, the less people believed her. Okay, so he has been wrong since every year of my life. Okay, he has been saying this completely bogus, unscientific BS every decade. And every decade he says the world's going to end in 10 years. And when the world doesn't end in 10 years, he just says it again. Okay?
Oh
Now,
yeah. Do you think
I
he
have a lot
believes
more
that?
respect for actual religious crazies who add up all the numbers in the first four books of the Bible and then divide that by Shakespeare's age to figure out the number when the planet Nemesis is going to crash into the Earth, okay, and destroy all life. They at least say they're getting their messages from angelic voices speaking in their heads. And I believe in angelic voices. I think that's entirely possible. I don't think that all the angels are loyal to God. I think there are other angels, but still, I'm willing to buy it. See, I would treat that guy with respect. I'd listen to his argument, and I would go my merry way, because the good book says that no man is going to know the hour, not even the sun. Okay, so if no man knows the hour, how does Ehrlich know the hour? He doesn't. Okay,
Because he
none of
doesn't.
these things, none of these scares turned out to be true. The DDT scare turned out to be untrue. You can eat DDT with a spoon; it doesn't hurt you. It doesn't thin out bird eggs. All it does is make it so that more people die of malaria if you ban it. The ozone hole in South America was caused by the eruption of Mount Erebus, which piled more chlorofluorocarbons into the atmosphere in 1 second than all of human activity on the Earth for all of history. Not to mention the same amount of CO2, of carbon dioxide. Okay? So this idea that breathing out is a pollution is madness. In fact, I could go down a list. I don't know if you want to, but I could go down a list of just things that turned out to be false.
Well,
I mentioned the shortage of tin, iron, zinc, and coal that Julian Simon made the wager with Paul Ehrlich about. The overpopulation one. Now that one particularly amuses me as a science fiction writer, because like UFO scares, my clan is the one who made that up. Okay, that doesn't come from anywhere. Maybe you could say Malthus tried to make it up back in the day, but Malthus also later corrected what he said, because you can't
did he?
analyze human
Didn't
behavior.
know that.
He later retracted it, at least in part, because he said you can't analyze human behavior in a static way. People react to incentives. People
That's
living in
true.
crowded conditions tend to reproduce less frequently than people living in uncrowded conditions. You say, and if you're living on a farm, every new baby is going to be a field hand, an unpaid field hand. If you're living in a city, every new baby means you have to pay more to buy a bigger apartment. You see, so the city mouse and the country
Yeah.
mouse are going to do slightly different things with the population pressures. Now, I'm old enough to remember when everyone was worried about global cooling, and this saying was going to be the
Yep.
next ice age. They turned on a dime and started talking about global warming.
Yep.
Then the data didn't bear that out.
Nope.
There is either minimal global warming or it's not happening at all, and there's certainly been no proof that it's happening that's caused by human activity. Okay, and
But
I could go
even
on.
even
Pesticides
if
were suspended, and things were banned because they caused tumors in mouse livers. Saccharin was suspended because it caused cancer in rats. But they don't tell you that the thing is the dosage. These rats were overdosed with all these things until they produced the cancer. Okay, acid rain. It never happened. It's no such thing. It's a natural cycle. It corrects itself. It's not caused by human activity,
I would note
and so on and
with
so forth.
I mean, even if we granted all of the presumptions of the climate change maniacs, that it's all human activity and it's all, like if we grant all their assumptions,
Okay,
I mean, for the sake of argument,
sure.
it's still not the case that therefore we need communism to solve the problem.
Or the
Like
communism. Where's the worst pollution on Earth right now? I think you know which country it is.
I do, it's China.
It's China,
Or China and India and Africa. It's undeveloped countries and China,
right? Which
basically.
pretends to be an undeveloped country, even though they're dominating the economy of the world market. Yes, yes. So
It's
and
yes.
the in fact the cleanest air is in the most capitalist country in America.
What's in the country? Well, I mean, clean air is one of those things you can afford when you have lots of excess wealth.
Right.
When you are scrabbling to get by, clean air and water is a luxury
It's a luxury.
because you need to survive.
Yeah.
But when you have abundant resources, clean air and water are things you can afford to pay. Because I mean, these things cost money. It's more expensive not to dump waste in the river. It's
Right.
more expensive to make clean smokestacks and all the rest of it.
Right. Right.
Um,
But it's
oh,
technically feasible for a wealthy country. So what you do
yes.
not want to do is when you're living in a fat wealthy country like I am, to say to some poor backward country that's trying to
No, you can't have
fend
energy.
off starvation, you may not do what we did to become wealthy. We put up factories and then we made enough money to make it so the factories don't smoke. You cannot put up factories.
The real
How cruel is that? That's just
oh,
that's
it's evil.
begging
It's evil.
the one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the famine, to get on his horse and ride. It's unbelievably
And war, for
cruel.
that matter.
Yeah, war will also be unleashed. The four tend to go together, you know. Now,
The
I wouldn't mind a little bit of war if it happened in Oxford and Cambridge with people tearing down the barricades and overturning their electric cars, which have to be battery powered by elements that come from where? Where does the lithium come from that goes into a car battery?
Yeah, not places that are renowned for their freedom and liberty.
Is it from China?
And Africa, the Congo, places like that,
Africa, Congo.
where slave children are worked to death. Yeah.
And who has the most control in Africa right now, thanks to our terrible foreign policy of Europe and America?
Oh, the Chinese do.
China? Okay.
Yeah.
They went in and spent money and bought friends. Sure.
You know what one of the worst parts about all of these solutions are?
What's that?
One of the worst parts is the people that want solutions impose solutions by fiat.
Sure.
Which often is worse. So I mean, there's two ways to solve a problem. So you're familiar, cars are all required to be fitted with catalytic converters now, right?
Yes.
They use some platinum, and it makes sure that the burnt byproducts of a combustion engine, the catalytic converter makes sure you basically get water and carbon dioxide out at the other end. It ends up being a clean process that everything's completely burnt.
It scrubs the smoke before it goes out the tailpipe.
But basically, yes. And I mean, that's okay. I mean, that's one way. So if you say your car's emissions have to be clean, and you just need water and carbon dioxide out the back end of the car, that's one way to solve the problem.
Right.
But our would-be overlords said, this is the solution to the problem. You must fit these converters to cars for them to be legal. This is how we're solving the problem. Do as you're told, car companies. The irony is, I think it was Honda had made really, really great strides in making really efficient, really, really clean burning engines that didn't require catalytic converters. They burned perfectly clean. They worked the way you wanted them to, without any of the problems, and you didn't need to fit these expensive catalytic converters to them. They just made a better engine. But, of course, now they still have to fit catalytic converters to their engines, so there's no incentive at all for people to make cleaner burning, better engines, because they're required to have this particular technology fitted. They had the same thing with, I may have this slightly wrong, they were required to fit electrostatic filters to smokestacks to filter sulfur and other garbage out of because of impurities in the coal. So what did companies do? They're required to fit this technology to solve the problem, but there's another way to solve the problem, which is you get purer, cleaner coal from a different source.
Yeah.
It's more expensive to get that coal, but it burns more cleanly. It has certain advantages.
Right.
But everyone's required to fit these electrostatic filters, so they just go and buy the dirtiest coal they can because it's cheaper. So
this is what economists call perverse
insane.
incentives. It's what economists call perverse incentives, and it is insane because it's literally divorced from reality. If you have one solution that's imposed by force, you're not allowed to look for other solutions.
But that's the problem.
You're not being held to an objective standard. All they'd have to do is measure that car's output and say, no matter how you do it, you have to make sure the output is cleaner than this amount. Give it a number.
Well, that's what frustrates me, because that's the right way to solve the problem, and that will encourage innovation and encourage people to solve the problem.
Right.
And probably come up with a lot of interesting new technologies on the way and learn things, like, and discover, oh, well, wow, we can actually make this way more efficient if we do this. Like, we were trying to get this goal, but yes, like the story of Viagra, I think it was to help people with low blood pressure or high blood pressure. I think it was low blood pressure. And then they were giving it to the guys, and the guys were reporting a side effect, shall we
We
say.
don't we don't need to go into details about the side effects on a family show.
But suddenly, but I mean, like that was the medication was not developed for that purpose, but
Right.
actually it had a side effect that turned out to be, well, very valuable, shall we say, and produce a whole new market of products. But
Yeah.
that never would have been discovered if they'd said, well, the only way you're allowed to lower blood pressure is via this chemical process in the human body. So all of your drugs must target this pathway to do it. It's the same sort of thing.
It is the same sort of thing because what's going on is one of them. If you measure the output of the car, then you say however you make it so the car does not emit this pollution, do it, and we'll let you have the car. Otherwise, not. That's an objective standard. That's objective law. But the one where you say you are required to buy this product from a company, the Platinum Company, which just funded my re-election campaign, so that everyone has to buy
Yeah.
that product and none other. That's non-objective law. That's tyranny. It's small tyranny, but small tyrannies can grow. My greatest objection was when they said in the 70s, when they said, "Oh, the oil is running out because OPEC is making it expensive. Therefore, you have to get more miles per gallon for every car, so you have to make the cars
Oh.
lighter." Well, here's the problem.
Well, hang on.
That
That's
has a
wait.
cost
You're
in
wrong. You're
human
wrong.
life if you make
You're
the cars
actually
lighter.
no. Wait. You're slightly wrong there. The
Am I?
cafe standards they brought in. No. You're not completely wrong. The cafe standards they brought in said cars on average must meet a minimum mileage requirement. But then they actually said go and solve that however you like, but you've got to do it in the next 5 years, something like that. And then the only way they could solve it was to make the cars lighter.
But
It's also why everyone.
how is that in any way different from what I said?
Well, no, but I mean, they actually did the right thing. They said you have to
No,
meet
they
these
didn't.
mileage. No, hang on. They
They
actually
said
said
we need to save gas. The way to save gas is to have more efficient cars that get more miles per gallon.
yes, but that's not.
Okay,
That's
that's irrational.
okay. That's hang
What they
on.
should have said is,
Let me
as
explain
the
though.
price of gas goes up, you may make cars any way you wish, so the consumer can decide where he
Oh,
wants to
that's true.
spend his gas money.
No,
But
no,
if they
that's true.
impose a standard that says you have to make a lighter car and the car is less crashworthy, then you're imposing a solution to the gas problem, which is a
Oh yeah.
government-caused problem,
No, I
which has a
agree.
cost in human blood because more
Oh yeah,
people
it does.
died in car accidents.
Well,
You
the
see?
other the other irony is because they imposed those standards and everyone went to lighter cars, but people don't like the lighter cars because it killed the station wagon basically.
Yes,
Everybody went from the station wagon to the SUV, which was a light
right.
truck,
Which was a truck,
and because that's a truck, not a car,
and the truck had
and they've
different
made the problem
standards.
worse. They've made the problem worse. It's ironic.
Sure, sure. It
Like
needs more gas
it's
because there's
it's
big
it's
it's
the
because it's a truck.
it's the typical, well, it's almost the typical environmentalist solution to any problem, which is
Right.
we will impose a solution and the knock-on effect of that solution will be worse than where we were originally.
Right.
It's
Because
amazing because they do it so
maybe
consistently.
maybe the first generation of conservationists were actually, in real life, concerned about keeping the wilderness wild for
Ooh,
hunting and recreational purposes, and
no,
cleaning up the environment, so on and so forth. But not these days.
conservationists and ecologists are different though.
They
They've
were
always been
taken
different.
over. They were taken over by the eco-nuts, who are basically
Yes.
Marxists. And the Marxists, what they want is control. They're utopians.
Yeah.
They want to solve all the world's problems through their God, and their God is not our God. Their God is Caesar. Their God is the state. Their God is the will of mankind writ large, the will of the people. So,
Well, no, it's
when
their
they,
will writ large. It's not even. It's definitely not the will of the people.
well, it's the will of the people as focused through the glorious leader. That's why I said Caesar's their God.
Oh
You
yes.
know? And the so they don't actually care. If the if someone actually thought that human activity was causing global warming and the global warming was real, which is really hard for me to believe considering what the science is. They've been predicting global warming every year of my life after 1978, I believe, was the
Mm.
year they switched from predicting the ice age to predicting global warming, and none of their predictions have come true.
No.
They made predictions based on a computer model that can't even back, that can't even retro predict the way things will turn
Yeah.
out now from 20 years, putting in the data from 20 years earlier or whatever. None of
Mm.
the predictions have come true. Their
No.
theory calls for an inversion layer in the upper atmosphere that will reflect heat back down to the Earth. That inversion layer doesn't exist. I mean, the model is falsifiable. It's only being propped up by hooey, by hogwash, you know, by hide the decline, by monkeying the data, by lying about the figures, and by out and
Well,
out
they
lies. But
well they solved it.
ecology eco-nuts give the Marxists everything they want. They have a
Mm.
glorious motive that the Eloi will buy. Everyone wants a clean world. Why not? It has an appeal to their mystical nature because they're saving Mother Nature from the evil rapists of the maggots of mankind, which are a plague. It appeals to their hatred for man because man in that model is just the maggots, right?
Mm.
It gives them nearly unlimited power to control all energy use and the entire economy. Anything that can be said to be affecting the ecology now comes into their purview once you say that it's a government issue to make sure that your backyard is clean. Okay?
Mm.
So they can also say that thoughts, words, and deeds, anything, can be part of the ecological equation, including things like racism and being unpleasant to each other, and so on and so forth.
Of course.
Anything can be said to be contributing to global warming. Okay, because it doesn't mean anything. Because any activity that causes entropy produces heat or something in some way. You know, and all you got to do is make sure you have enough control of the public school system to make sure that people don't have enough scientific education to be able to check basic facts and data to see that it's all a fraud. It's all just
Yep.
a big lie. You
Yep.
see. And you also have to quell all public debate. Now, the way to quell public debate is by declaring it to be an emergency. No one is actually worried about 1 degree Celsius of ocean heat rising over the next 150 years. That's not an emergency.
No.
You see, they're worried that the world's going to end in 12 years. That's an emergency. That means that there's no time to debate the matter. There's no time for scientists to make a decision. There's no time for us to look at the evidence. There's no time for us to have a public discussion. The
No.
science is settled. The debate is over. The matter is done. It's an emergency. The house is on fire. If your child has a fever, you don't wait. You have to do everything right away. You have to give Caesar all the power over everything, and make sure that everything is within 15 minutes of your house, and put up barricades.
Yeah.
Monitor your car. Put a chip in your head. Put a chip on your hand. Make sure that people don't exceed their calorie intake limits. You see, they don't care about the environment. They care about power because
They always have.
that's these guys. The Marxists got their marching orders from Hegel, who comes from a long line of Hermeticists and alchemists and Gnostics and other people who are members of esoteric religions, Freemasons and Rosicrucians, that go all the way back to the Bronze Age. There's always been magicians among us, people who think that by changing the word we call something, it changes the thing.
Mm.
Haven't you noticed how political correctness is all about word control? Okay,
Yes.
nothing actually really changes when you say A is B or B is A, you know, and just because you say it's an emergency doesn't mean there's actually any danger. They're saying it's an emergency because of triage. During a
Mm.
wartime, you could do things that you're not allowed to do during peacetime. During wartime, you have to do triage. You have to let some people die without medical care if they're wounded because you don't have the
Mm.
resources. And so you separate the guys who can be saved from the guys who will get better without any aid. You let them get better by themselves because you're out of stuff. With the guys who can be helped, the guys who can't be helped, you don't help. You know, even though in peacetime, and if you had plenty of resources and it wasn't an emergency, you would do that. See,
You'd help everybody. Yeah.
right? And also during an emergency, you're allowed to say evacuate people to move them from one point to another, which you cannot legally do otherwise. Otherwise, that's false imprisonment. That's kidnapping.
Mm.
Okay. During emergency, uh, any port in a storm. That phrase comes from the law. If
Yep.
you're caught in a storm at sea and your ship is about to be damaged, you are allowed to go enter someone else's port, even if it is trespassing because it's allowable during the emergency. But if it's a calm,
Exigent
sunny day,
circumstances. Yeah.
right, you can plead necessity. But during a sunny day, you can't just barge into his port and tie up to his dock when it's a private dock. No, it's trespassing. Okay. Well, so therefore everything becomes an emergency, including things like a 1 degree Celsius rise in the ocean temperature over the next 150 years. It's an emergency. We're all going to die within the next 12 years. Everyone's going to die. We're all going to burn up. It's a false alarm. It's a false fire alarm. And they're doing it for two reasons. One is to create chaos, the other is to create tyranny. They're anarcho-capitalists. So 15-minute cities, insane idea. Absolutely insane. If people wanted to live in small towns with the convenience of small town life, they'd go move to a small town.
I wonder how it's going to go. I have some hope, actually. I think they've been emboldened by the I agree. Yes, I have some hope because clearly the bugmen have been emboldened. I think it's reasonable to call them bugmen. They want us all to live like insects, and they want to be the queen of the anthive.
It's at least as good a description as Morlocks, who are the subterranean cannibal predators who think that they are evolved beyond human beings. They think they're more advanced than us because they come after humanity. So yeah.
But I have hope. I have some hope, believe it or not, because I watched what happened during the unspecified virus of unspecified origin.
We call it in my house we call it the Wuhan Red Death. So
I love that description from the Critical Drinker, the unspecified virus of unspecified origin. But anyway,
not only do all the best engineers come from Scotland, but some of the best jokes do too. So.
But we watched what happened there, and it was insane here in Australia. Like, we were, in my state, the least restricted one, I think, during most of the whole thing. At one point, we were locked down to within what they called a local government area, which is a council area or whatever. Which, where I live, our council shire is a couple of hundred, well, 100 and something kilometers, about 100 miles from top to bottom, and about as wide. It's enormous, like it's huge. So we were allowed to travel anywhere within that area, which is fine. I didn't notice because I almost never go to the city. I'm quite content where I live. There's plenty to do.
I was in a similar situation. Since I never leave my house for any reason, I didn't notice there was a lockdown going on.
But for some people, like the areas were tiny. Like the areas were because the areas are divided up approximately by the amount of population in them. In the inner cities, some of these areas were tiny, were microscopic. Like they were kilometers across. They're tiny areas that you were then restricted to when you already live in a 2-bedroom apartment. Like it's madness.
Yeah, that was where the idea for the 15-minute city came from.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm guessing the idea has been around a lot longer, but because people went along.
Let me tell you where it comes from, because I thought this was fascinating. I did not know this until quite recently.
Okay, but let me then finish while I have.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You have the floor. Go ahead.
No. I mean, okay, but between that and the coercion for everybody to be vaccinated, as our Prime Minister said, nobody forced you to take it. The lying bag of crap. But you just can't participate in society, and you can't go anywhere or do anything or have a job if you won't.
Speaking as an attorney, threatening someone with exile, even internal exile, like threatening, stranding John the Revelator on Patmos, is a threat, and forcing someone to do something by means of a threat is coercion, even though it's not assault and battery. So yes, he's a liar. I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course.
Force is forcing someone to do something, not force. Yes, no one held them down. That's true.
No one held them down and jabbed them.
Yes, put a physical hand on the physical body. They just held a gun to your head.
Yes. Well, yeah. So even though
metaphorically, they held the gun to your pocketbook, to your travel, to your freedom, to your liberty.
Well, yes. Even though the clown came out and said that, but I mean, Um, and we have ridiculously high vaccination, at least first two dose gene therapy rates in this country, like 95% compliance above 18, I think.
I've heard
Uh,
that people suddenly dying from cardiac diseases is caused by global warming. That's what I heard.
my understanding from the latest research is it's definitely not that that's causing all the heart attacks. It's reading the high energy bills while smoking pot as the climate changes, is my understanding.
That's true because I believe pot smoking is the only human activity that does not contribute to climate change, as well as bug eating. Anything they want us to do does not somehow magically does not contribute to
Apparently.
climate change. Yeah, yeah.
But I have hope because I mean they've been emboldened
You mean
because
you mean hope that
everybody.
the population will rise up and tear
Well,
down those idols?
I have hope. I mean, they've certainly been emboldened by the fact that everybody was panicked and went along with this. But I'm emboldened because in England they're putting bollards up for the 15-minute cities, and the residents keep pulling them out of the ground and throwing them in the river. They're not putting up with it, and jab compliance rates, despite the fact that I mean here in New South Wales we have the public health officer still coming out and hysterically carrying on going, oh, you need your 75th booster. You need your 75th booster jab or you're definitely going to die this winter. But compliance rates
Wow.
are minuscule. Like they're just, nobody's doing, everyone's going, well, no, I've had enough of this. I'm not playing ball anymore. So I have hope because they've been emboldened by all the compliance, but so they're pushing forward. But I have hope because I'm not sure people will be so willing to comply next time. I'm not sure people will be so willing to be panicked. And one of the side effects of all of the media screaming the panic and fear is lots of people learn, and all of the big social media sites censoring any discussion and all of the rest of it is all of these people that were dissenting and had questions found other ways to communicate. They found other ways to talk to each other. They found ways to work around the problem
And
and
the
none
public
of but and none
and
of
the
these ways
public
have gone away, and none of
and
these sorry, and none of these and all of the direction of the flow of people is from people who were not skeptical and who were panicked. When they see through it, they become skeptics. They never go back. You won't convince these people again, and I don't think they'll be convinced. I don't think they'll be as easily convinced by the next panic. I mean, if people are dying and falling over in the streets and like bleeding out their eyes, like Ebola, you'd probably panic them successfully. But I don't think you will short of that.
look, they got panicked in America, even though no one was dying in the streets. They got
No, that's
panicked
what
in
I'm saying.
America,
Yeah,
even though
agreed.
no hospitals were flooded with patients.
Hmm.
There was a big frou-fra when the federal government sent two Navy hospital ships to New York in anticipation that there was going to be a huge flood of
And nothing
patients in the
happened.
emergency
Yeah,
rooms, and all that happened is everyone who had a legitimate reason to be in the hospital stayed away, and so people died of easily curable diseases. Now,
yeah.
here's the other thing I was going to say: scaring people by saying there is a disease that is invisible, has few or no symptoms, that is easily transmissible, and every human person you meet, and you get within 6 feet of him, could kill you. Okay, that makes it seem absolutely reasonable to hide in your house
Mm.
because every person you meet is now deadly, or you're told. But if you say, listen, we've got to keep you walking within 15 minutes of your house. We have to place you under house arrest with an ankle monitor to make sure you do not drive your electric car 16 minutes away from your house.
Well, we all have
Otherwise,
these.
the
We all have mobile
world.
phones.
Let me
So
finish.
no, no.
Otherwise, the world will burn up in 100 years. No one is going to consider that to be an imminent threat. You see, so that's the big difference between the panic. People are used to having quarantines during epidemics. It's
Mm.
allowable. People understand it is reasonable. Now, this is the first time anyone ever quarantined the healthy people instead of the sick people. You know what they did is
You've,
they put all the sick people in the old folks' homes to kill off the old folks, and then wrote books about what a good job they did during the COVID lockdown. That was that
yeah.
was one of our mayor, or one of our New York governors, one of our administrators did that here in America.
They they also They have managed great strides in propagandizing the youth, though, to be terrified of um, the emergency, like the climate change emergency and things like that, to the point that these poor kids are just
Yes.
hysterically afraid of this.
Let me mention one thing about I said that I knew what the origin of this was, and it kind of surprised me earlier. But I wanted you to finish your comment first. But
Sure, sure.
here's my comment. H.G. Wells, the same guy who wrote The Time Machine, wrote a
Mm.
book back in the day called The Open Conspiracy, and the theme of the book was this: socialists did not need to have a violent revolution, as Marx predicted, in order to replace capitalism with a more utopian system. All that had to be done was for the hoi polloi, the lesser people, the Eloi, the serfs, to be convinced to accept their masters peaceably. And the masters, being wiser and smarter, being enlightened, would make the correct decisions based on scientific right reason as to how everything in society should be run. That was the Wellesian theory. And
But
what he
that goes
said
back to.
was,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I was going to say that goes back to Plato and the Republic.
Sure, but here's what
No,
makes it.
there's nothing new under the sun.
There's nothing new under
Go.
the sun. But here's what makes it Wellesian. He said all you have to do is make them feel guilty for using resources.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are normally good-natured and will shoulder an extra burden to help out their neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say, hey, to help out your neighbor, you have to use less of this. You have to eat less of that. You have to not have any factories near you. You have to not use any products. You don't get shoes. You don't get to have a hat. Okay, go back to cloaks and boots and sandals like the Romans. Okay, go back to sticks and and rocks like the caveman. You get to learn how to knap flint. That works. The whole ecological madness, from ozone holes to DDT to everything else that turned out to be a complete fraud, uh, is based on this Wellesian idea of convincing people that the use of resources is the original sin. That if mankind does things, builds cities, builds engines, burns fires, that the sky god and the earth mother are going to be mad at you. So you
Yep.
have to live in poverty, self-imposed poverty, like a monk. You know, take a vow of poverty, like a Jesuit or something, so that your overlords can decide where the society's wealth is going to be used. On whether, I mean, either they can use it for a mansion for themselves, or a dachau, or a vacation
Yeah.
in Davros on themselves, because they have lots of things to do and they're smarter than us, and they But this whole thing is, like I said, it's just a religion. It's an anti-Christian, anti-human, anti-life religion, and it goes way back. Marx is only the most recent popular variation. He's a non-supernatural version. Earlier Hermeticists and Gnostics believed in gods and spirits, not these guys.
Yep.
And they used basically the same approach and the same language. And the idea is to get retaliation for your happy neighbors, to make them as miserable as you, by promising them infinite happiness. And it always, by the way, it always works the same way. You don't ever come out and criticize their religion, their God, their social order, their laws, their institutions. You say, no, no, no. I agree with you that marriage is fine, but now we're going to improve marriage by allowing a man to marry an animal, a woman to marry herself, or whatever. We're going to improve. Your God is a good God, but we're going to improve God by including all the other gods into our concept of God, and to say that every man is also a god. We're all gods. The way these guys work is they don't say they're going to get rid of your God. They're just going to improve your God by including all the other gods and you and me. So every man is also a god. So every person's part of God. We're going to make it an improved democracy, a super democracy, where we're going to have all the benefits of democracy and everyone's going to get a vote, but we'll have all property in common. And by all property in common, we mean that we, the enlightened, will decide what you, the benighted, are going to do, and you will live in a pod, and you will eat bugs, and you will own nothing, and you will be happy. And so, also, we're not going to outlaw marriage. We're going to improve marriage by letting everyone marry everyone. Or did I say that one already? We're going to improve the money system by taking you off that nasty gold standard and taking all your paper money away, so everything will be kept tracked of electronically through a form of cryptocurrency, where one man in Davros will get to decide by pushing a button whose wealth will evaporate instantaneously overnight. And it will only be the bad people, not you people with high
They
ESG scores.
have you seen like the central bank digital currencies? They're straight up about it. Oh, we'll be able to control what things can be spent on to prevent money laundering, and we'll be able to, you
Right.
know, um, transactions will be automated and easy. So we'll be able to take fines out of your account directly with you having no say in the matter, and
Right.
we'll be able to turn your money on and off as we see fit if you don't do it. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, oh, I mean, I think at this point,
Did we already say that this is more nightmarish than anything invented by 1984 by
yeah,
George Orwell or by
it
Big World by
is.
Aldous Huxley? I don't
It
remember if
really
I
is.
made that comment, but this is the number of the beast. This is
I
them controlling every aspect of human existence for no purpose. None of these things are going to solve any of the problems they claim they're going to solve. They don't
no,
care about the problems. It's just an
no, they just want to be in
excuse.
charge.
Yes,
They
but
want
they
to be
also want to
gods.
die. They also want to commit suicide in a group. They also don't like life. They don't like females. They want the females to be males. They don't like males. They want the males to be females. They certainly don't like children, unless they can buy them or sell them as a sex object. They don't like any of the things that human beings who are alive like. They're vegetarians. They're nudists. They don't like clothes. They don't like meat. I can't think of anything they actually like that gives them joy out of life. They're just against things because they're all, like I said, magicians. They're members of an esoteric, anti-life religion. And we have to
They're
realize we're dealing with
Satanists.
religious fanatics. We're dealing with jihadists, with who are waging a holy war, because no ordinary, normal disincentive is going to deter them. They're asking you with the 15-minute cities. They're asking you to cooperate in building your own prison house. They want you to brick yourself up and to put down the mortar yourself and lay it up brick by brick, one brick at a time, to put on the chains yourself and to throw the key away. That's what they're asking you to do. So why can't people say no to this madness, to this
Well,
obvious trick, to these
because they would.
liars? Go ahead.
I said they'll say no because obviously they would. People don't want to live like this. People don't want to live the way the bugmen want them to live. People don't want to
But
join them in their bugginess.
but we are usually willing to shoulder an extra burden if we actually think it's going to help our neighbors, or we think it's going to help the
Oh,
nation, or we think
that's
it's
how
going to
they're
help the
selling it.
world.
I'm
That's
not
how
sure
they're
how
selling it.
it's.
It's white blackmail. They're appealing to the best thing in human nature to get the worst things done. It is the most evil thing I can imagine. It is not.
Yeah,
It comes straight from hell. I'm sorry. It is
it's
diabolical. It is not.
of
I don't
course.
believe any human being could be this evil. Sorry.
Well,
I have a very negative view of human beings, but this is a level of
beyond that,
evil
yeah.
genius below that I think it's supernatural. I think that only
Oh,
prayer and fasting is going to drive these people away. They're possessed. Now,
we
maybe
might.
they're only possessed by a bad idea. Maybe they're only possessed by power lust. Maybe they're only possessed by suicidal impulses. Or maybe they're possessed. Hard to say.
Well, I mean, I suppose we always have the option the Dutch took with their Prime Minister Johan de Witt in 1672. Um, I'm not advocating for that, and I'm not going to say what they did on the podcast because that might get us pulled down off YouTube. I'm just saying there are options.
So
So,
spell the name out. Was it De Witt, you said? W-I-T-T?
Johan de Witt, or de Witt,
Okay.
probably de Witt, but it's spelled de
So
Witt. D
as
W W-I-T-T.
so let's say the we Anglos can say De Witt, and everyone from Netherlands has to say De Witt.
Yes.
So as homework for our beloved listeners, we have to they have to look it up to see what should happen to unpleasant and unpopular magistrates who overstep their bounds.
Yes.
You know,
Well, I mean, I don't think I'm advocating for doing it because it went a little far.
you
But
were
I'm
just
just saying.
opening it up as a
I'm just saying.
possibility.
I'm
As
just
a,
saying there are options, people.
let's keep our options open. Yes, yes. Now here's what worries me. During the Middle Ages, there were periodic peasant revolts whenever the laws and the taxes became too burdensome, called jacqueries, because the jacks would all rise up and rebel. But they were disorganized, and the knights would just ride in on their armor and kill a bunch of them until the rest of them were cowed into obedience, and they usually nothing was done. Usually nothing ended up happening of any kind of reform or improvement. You just have a bunch of peasants hanging from trees by the neck. So what we have to do to stop the encroachment, to stop the Morlocks, the the bug people, the enlightened ones, the magicians, those who know better than us, the power grubbers, the leftists, the whatever you want to call them, the we have to get organized. In addition to praying and fasting, we have to make a coordinated way to get institutions that they cannot invade or enter. You see, which means we have to gatekeep those institutions. We have to make ways of
That's
communicating with
happening.
each other. But I'm saying we have to be more organized. We have to all do our part, because basically we're in a cold war with these people. They know
Yep.
it, and we don't. And they've been following a game plan. I mentioned the Open Conspiracy by H.G. Wells. They've been following the same game plan for hundreds of years. The high-level dissenter from the Soviet Union, I can't recall his name off the top of my head, Bezimov, I don't remember if that's his name or not, said that there was a four-step process that they use in every society to create chaos and to overturn it. We have to be aware of what their tactics are and what their goals are, what their motives are. Their motive is not to help the planet. They don't believe in global warming. The people who are deceived by their lies might believe it's happening, but no real scientist thinks it's happening. The evidence is against them. We don't need a 15. And even if it was true, we don't need a 15-minute city to stop global warming. What we need is a giant space parasol. Okay? Or just to if we want to get rid of carbon, just plant more trees.
And build nuclear reactors everywhere.
Build nuclear reactors everywhere. Anyone who is actually serious about global warming, I have never met them, because I've never heard a single one of them say, "I want the energy supply to be something that doesn't produce any greenhouse gases." Well,
you meet the odd
power
one.
produces
There are a few
zero
that
greenhouse
exist,
gases.
but yeah,
I've never met them. I've never met them. I'm sure they exist. The same I'm sure UFOs exist, but I've never seen one. I'm kidding. I don't believe in UFOs. They're clearly chariots being driven by sky devils. So, but we can't let these people appeal to our better nature to lock us into a worse situation where we build our own prisons. Okay?
I think they may have, fortunately, well, providentially, I should say.
Much better word.
I think, ironically, COVID may have caused them to overplay their hand and move. We were all moving slowly towards this enslavement. It had been happening for a long time. It had been moving slowly forward. The bugmen seem to have seized on their what they thought was their opportunity to advance their plans a whole bunch, and as evil always does, it's overplayed its hand.
Yeah, because evil's based on pride. Because evil's based on pride, and pride overestimates itself. That's why they always overplay their hand.
But now people have woken up and seen what they're doing. Well, we'll see. People, we have. You were talking about we need channels of communication, but look what happened during the pandemic. People were organizing protests on Facebook. People were getting organized, and people were organizing, and then Facebook came along and closed all of these down.
Yeah, see, that's the problem.
But no. I mean, yes, I agree. But all of these people didn't just go, dang, I guess we can't do that then. They all moved to Signal and Telegram, and they found other ways to work around the problem. And now the powers that be have created these alternative networks, these parallel economies and these alternative networks for people to communicate on that they can no longer control. So hopefully, when they try to advance their plans further, people will be in a better position to organize to push back. We'll see what happens. I mean, for all we know, this has been the plan. This has been the plan from the beginning, and God is allowing the final end time and the end of the world. So there's no getting past this. It's just going to get really ugly, and then we win. But maybe not. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
We don't know if this is the last battle or the next to the last battle, or maybe the end of the world is 5 million years from now. But we're supposed to be at our battle stations when our master comes. He's going to come like a thief in the night, and you're not going to get any warning. He's going to just show up and say, hey, what are you doing? And you'll have to go, oh no, I'm busy. I'm doing my job, sir. I wasn't goofing off.
it could just be the case because Christianity, the gospel is spreading like wildfire in China and Africa.
Yeah. Thank you, God.
To the point that the Chinese government like is trying to oppress it and crack down on it.
Yeah.
Which has always worked amazingly well to silence Christianity. Christianity has never spread when it's oppressed in all of human history. That's always been effective at suppressing the gospel.
What I'm hoping is that some bishops from Africa will straighten out the bishops from Europe and get them to stop chasing after the false idols of worldliness and return to the Christian tradition, the Christian method.
We may just be witnessing the death of the West rather than the death of the world. Rather than the end of the world, we may just be witnessing the death of our civilization. And that's, be that as it may, all civilizations come and go. Civilizations aren't forever.
Sure,
ironically, only people are.
But
the bugmen believe the reverse. Civilizations are forever and people come and go. But actually, the truth is the reverse. Civilizations come and go, but people are forever.
Notice the pattern. They belittle the importance of the individual and increase the importance of the collective because that gives them an excuse to abuse power. They say it's always an emergency because during an emergency you may use power. That gives them an excuse. They say that you're a bigoted, racist, homophobic, Islamophobe because you're insane. Those are accusations of phobia, of insanity. And a sane people have always been able to throw madmen into madhouses. It gives them, they're allowed. It's an emergency. You see? So everything that they do, everything in their philosophy is meant to allow them to use a double standard. Hypocrisy is the source and summit of everything they believe. Rules for thee and not for me. They're the enlightened ones. We're the benighted ones. You know?
Yep.
And how do they know they're enlightened? Well, they just consult their own internal register of their emotions. And because they're God, I mean, remember they said they have a new and improved God, and it's them? But they're not against our religion or our God or our civilization. Oh, no. They just happen to be helping everything that makes the civilization decay. Here's the other thing. They have to rely on deception and wordplay to win. If people got into the habit of calling things by their right names, everything they're saying is actually absurd. Logically absurd on its face. So all we have to do is the hard part. Be honest. That will drive them back.
So the solution to pushing back is speak the truth to power. Actually speak the truth to power.
Yes.
To get back to church, repent in sackcloth and ashes and prayer, and
organize.
And we've been handed all of the tools to do. Well, we've always had the tools to do this, except the last one.
It's a lot easier these days than
we've
ever
been handed those
before.
Tools. So
I mean, just the fact that you and I can have this conversation so easily on the futuristic video phone. I mean, come on.
From opposite sides of the globe, yeah.
From opposite sides of the globe, yeah. Where I consider to be your time and your seasons to be wrong, not merely different. So, but that's just me.
That's
no, fair enough. Oh no, he agrees with that. The one thing I said that's absolutely silly, he agrees with. But everything I said is perfectly reasonable. I'm not sure, John. Okay. So what do you see? What do you think the solution is going to be for this, for the 15-minute city? How are we going to get out of letting these people talk us into madness?
I think we're going to have to. Well, hopefully we don't have to shoot our way out. I don't want it to come to that because that gets at that. Because with the exception of the American Revolution, and that was a close run affair, these things always get out of hand and often end up worse than when we started.
The American Revolution was a rarity in history, and let no one tell you otherwise. Anyone other than George Washington, any other man who was offered a crown at that time would have taken it.
But it almost didn't succeed. I mean, it almost ended like the French Revolution. It was a close run thing. So
I'm convinced it was miraculous. I don't see this.
Of course,
there's no way anyone could defeat the greatest empire ever to exist at that time, which is the British Empire, who had the best musket men, and they had Hessian mercenaries, and they had ships, and they had arms, and they had men, and we had a bunch of backwoodsmen. You know, no, it was impossible. It was a miracle. It was the hand of God. Americans cannot take credit for a successful revolution.
But I would say, God will prevail because, you know what? He always will. He's in control. Whether our civilization will survive, whether we will survive, None of that matters.
Well, here's what happens.
It'd be good if it'd be nice. It'd be nice if we could turn this back without force. It would be nice if we could turn this back without everything being burned to the ground and having to rebuild it from scratch. But if we have to, we have to.
That depends on them, not on us.
Well,
it only takes one side to make a war. Right now, it's a Cold War. It's a Cold War that our side isn't fighting. If it becomes a hot war, that's up to them. They get to decide whether or not they're going to start arresting political enemies and raiding their houses and so on and so forth.
Well, they're already doing that.
Well, I haven't heard yet. I haven't seen the news today, so I don't know whether or not President Trump has been arrested for a non-crime.
But they've been arresting, in the US, they've been arresting pro-lifers. There was a pregnant woman harassed in her house in Victoria here in Australia for saying she was thinking about going to a protest. Or was publicising there was a protest on against lockdowns. And she was harassed by police. Who knows how many people they did it to. She just caught it on camera.
Amazing.
So,
well,
it's mad, you know.
God will keep his promises. I'm hoping that we're not going to enter the time of the Babylonian captivity, because sometimes the people of God do bad things and have to be punished, but sometimes they repent. So that's why I'm hoping for repentance rather than punishment. Because there's an old saying that I believe you told me: you can vote yourself into socialism, but you have to shoot your way out of it.
Yeah. Yes, that's not original to me, but I've certainly said that on occasion, and we will see what happens. God is good, and in the end, we will triumph, whether in this life or the next. It doesn't matter.
Correct. But
it would be nice to avoid the downfall of civilization.
It would be nice.
It would be preferable to avoid the horrors that are definitely one of the branches we could go down now. If we don't. If we're too far gone, so be it. But we should at least go down fighting.
His will be done, but also stock up on food and ammo. Except you're not allowed to have ammo in Wales, in New South Wales.
Yeah.
So move to America. Move to Texas. By the way, according to Texas is legally allowed to detach itself from the Union at any time. That was part of the conditions written down in writing in the state constitution when they joined. So if things get too California-like here in America, they're just going to jettison the rest of the country, and they'll survive. So
we'll see. Well, thank you everybody for joining us on this episode. I hope it's been entertaining, and we'll talk to you next time.